Emperor Genghis Khan, who had undertaken the invasion of India, made a creature in the desert, like a deer with a head like that of a horse, one horn on its forehead and green hair on its body, which addressed them, saying, "It is time for your master to return to his own land." One of Genghis's Chinese ministers, upon consultation, explained to him that the animal was a Qilin, a variety of the Qilin. "For 4 years this great army has been warring in western regions," he said. "Heaven, which has a horror of bloodshed, gives warning through the Qilin. Spare the empire for heaven's sake. Moderation will give boundless pleasure." The emperor desisted in his war plans. What manner of creature is this that can turn back even the mighty Genghis Khan?
That's a weird horse.
Hi everybody, my name is Brett, and this is the Fantasy Historian, a channel that uncovers the history behind our favorite fantasy elements, characters, and creatures across different media. I am also compiling a bestiary of all our favorite creatures across different IPs. As always, I like to start by giving a summary taken from the most relevant monster manual or compendium to get a picture on how the creature is used in fantasy. For the Kirin, I will be using Mordekainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse from Dungeons and Dragons. When we think of a Kirin, what do we imagine? Taking a look at the illustration in the book, the Kirin looks like a yellow golden unicorn with the iconic one horn in the middle of its head. Dragon-like scales cover its body from head to tail. The white mane, tail, and beard give it an ancient and wizened look and seems to be waving in the air in all its majestic glory. Looking at the monster sheet, I skipped the specific stats in favor of abilities that can make a callback to history and understanding of what the creature can do. I will note, however, that this has a challenge rating or danger level of 12 out of 30. It is a large celestial and with an alignment or temperament of lawful good. The Kirin is quick, able to fly and hover. It has insight and perception, allowing it to determine motives, and is able to recall religious lore and practices, giving us a picture of a powerful, wise, and old creature. It is immune to being poisoned, it has dark vision, true sight, being able to see through all sorts of mischief and deception, and can speak all languages telepathically. Taking a look at the traits. Legendary resistance, 3 times per day. If the Kirin fails a saving throw, it can choose to succeed instead. Magic resistance. The Kirin has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. This makes the Kirin very hard to hit. Actions. Multi-attack. The Kirin makes 2 hoof attacks and 1 horn attack, or it makes 2 sacred fire attacks. All 3 options are listed. I want to add the breath weapon attack from the Pathfinder Bestiary Book 3 in place of the sacred fire attack, as it is actually a bigger reference to history. So it reads breath weapon, 2 actions, divine evocation fire. The Kirin breathes fire in a 30-foot cone, dealing lots of fire damage. Spell casting. The Kirin casts one of the following spells, requiring no material components and using wisdom as the spell casting ability. I am not going to go over all these spells just for time, but feel free to pause right here and check them out. In general, it's a lot of healing and defensive spells. Legendary actions. 3 uses. Immediately after another creature's turn, the Kirin can expend a use to take one of the following actions. The Kirin regains all expended uses at the start of each of its turns. Move. The Kirin moves up half its speed without provoking opportunity attacks. Smite. The Kirin makes 1 hoof, horn, or sacred fire attack. The Kirin has an interesting section that allows for some unique interactions between players and other creatures. The lair actions can be used to provide negotiations and gifts from the Kirin to whatever it is interacting with. Lair actions. On initiative, count 20, losing initiative ties. A Kirin can take one of the following lair actions and it must finish a long rest before taking the chosen lair action again. Create comforts. The Kirin conjures up one or more permanent objects made of soft, plant-based material, including manufactured objects like pillows, rope, blankets, and clothing that can collectively fill no more than a 20-foot cube. The objects materialize 1 minute later in unoccupied spaces of the Kirin's choice on the floor of the lair. Create stone and metal. The Kirin conjures up one or more temporary objects made of stone or metal that can collectively fill no more than a 2-foot cube. The objects materialize 1 minute later in unoccupied spaces of the Kirin's choice on the floor of the lair, and the objects vanish after 1 hour. Create wood. The Kirin conjures up one or more permanent objects made of wood or a similarly hard plant-based material that can collectively fill no more than a 10-foot cube. The objects materialize 1 minute later in an unoccupied space of the Kirin's choice on the floor of the lair. The next special section is like an aura of divine healing and calm, which plays nicely into the history of the creature. Regional effects. The Kirin's celestial nature transforms the region around its lair. Any of the following magical effects is possible for travelers to encounter in the vicinity. Blessed nature. Beasts, plants, and celestials within 3 miles of the Kirin's lair grow more vigorous as they evolve toward an idealized form. Such creatures are rarely aggressive toward others that aren't normally prey. Controlled weather. A Kirin can cast Control Weather while it is within 3 miles of its lair. The spell's point of origin is always the point outdoors closest to the center of its lair. The Kirin doesn't need to maintain a clear path to the sky or to concentrate for the change in weather to persist. Pure waters. Water flows pure within 3 miles of a Kirin's lair. Any purposeful corruption of the water lasts for no more than 3 minutes. Realm of Respite. Curses, diseases, and poisons on creatures are suppressed when those creatures are within 3 miles of the lair, unless the creatures are aberrations, fiends, or undead. Safe descents. Within 3 miles of the lair, winds buoy creatures that fall due to no act of the Kirin or its allies. Such creatures descend at a rate of 60 feet per round and take no falling damage. Aberrations, fiends, and undead don't gain this benefit, falling as normal. When the Kirin dies, all these effects disappear immediately, although the invigorating effect on the flora and fauna remains for 3 years. Taking a look at its lore. Kirins are noble celestial creatures. In the outer planes, Kirins in service to benevolent deities take a direct role in the eternal struggle between good and evil. In the mortal world, Kirins are celebrated far and wide as harbingers of destiny, guardians of the sacred, and counterbalances to the forces of evil. Kirins are an embodiment of good, and simply beholding one can evoke fear or awe in an observer. A typical Kirin looks like a muscular stag, covered in golden scales, lined in some places with golden fur. It has a long mane and tail, coppery cloven hooves, and a spiral-shaped coppery horn just above and between its luminous violet eyes. In a breeze or when aloft, the creature's scales and hair appear to be ablaze with a holy golden fire. Beyond their coloration, Kirins vary in appearance based on the deity each one reveres and the function each typically performs in service to that god. Some resemble gigantic unicorns. These are often used as guardians. Others have draconic features and tend to be aggressive foes of evil. Having one horn is most common, but a particularly fierce Kirin might have 2 horns or a set of antlers like those of a great stag. In many lands, common folk view Kirins as heralds of good fortune. They consider seeing a Kirin fly overhead a blessing, and events that happen on such a day especially auspicious. If a Kirin alights during a ceremony, such as a birth announcement or a coronation, everyone present understands that the creature is telling them the person is so honored could become a great force for good. Kirins have also been known to appear at the sites of great battles to inspire and strengthen the side of good, or to rescue heroes from certain death. Kirins are attracted to the worship of deities of courage, loyalty, selflessness, and truth, as well as to the advancement of just societies. For instance, in the Forgotten Realms, Kirins rally mostly to Torm, although they also serve his allies Tyr and Almeida. Kirins that serve good deities go wherever they are commanded. A Kirin from an upper plane might venture to the material plane on a mission, usually as a scout, a messenger, or a spy. A Kirin living in the material plane claims a territory to watch over, and one Kirin might safeguard an area that encompasses several nations. There is another section under the lore called Lair of Luxury, but we're going to come back to that when we get to the ecology of the Kirin. From this, we get an old, wise creature that does not wish to fight unless it is to purge evil. When it does fight, it excels in defense and healing. Now, it's time to take a dive into history to see how much of this creature is pulled from legend, and to do that, we need to travel to the region where it all started. Ancient China, here we come. Right off the bat, it should be mentioned that there are multiple different names for the Kirin. In China, it is known as the Qilin or Qilin. In Japan, it's known as the Kirin. In Korea, it is the Kirin or Girin. In Thailand, it's the Qilin. And in Vietnam, it's the Qilin. Since the first mention of the Kirin is found in ancient China, we will now be switching over to the Qilin spelling. The first ever mention of the Qilin is found in a compilation of poems in the Book of Odes, dating between the 11th and 7th century BC. Instead of Qilin, though, it is just named the Lin. We will get back to that in a second. Here's the quote. "The hooves of the Lin, the noble sons of our prince. Ah, they are the Lin, the forehead of the Lin, the noble grandsons of our prince. Ah, they are the Lin, the horn of the Lin, the noble kindred of our prince. Ah, they are the Lin." End quote. In the explanation of this short version of Lin, we find the answer in the Shuowen Jiezi, which is a Chinese dictionary formed around 100 AD. Quote, "The female we call Qi, the male we call Lin. The cry of the male is the wandering sage. The cry of the female is returning wisdom. The Lin has horns. The Qi is similar to the Lin, but without horns." End quote. The first account of Qilin in the historical record is found in the Chronicle of Zhuo, describing events in China from 722 to 468 BC. Here, it is stated that the first Chinese writing system was developed from the markings found on a Qilin's back in 3000 BC. Within various books scattered throughout the centuries, the Qilin is said to appear before the birth of a righteous ruler. The first Qilin is said to have appeared in the garden of the Yellow Emperor, or Huangdi, and a second time in the capital city of Emperor Yao, signifying heaven's approval of their benevolent reign. One is also said to have appeared to Confucius's mother, spitting out a tablet that read, "Son of mountain crystal, when the dynasty crumbles, thou shalt rule as a throneless king." The depiction of the Qilin changed throughout the centuries from looking like a type of deer with antlers to more like a deer with dragon scales and a head with one horn. Because of the one horn, it is also known as the Chinese unicorn in the West. Unfortunately, it was really hard to get my hands on primary sources as a lot of it was in Chinese. When I did find some English translations, it read like this, and I quote, "The Qilin is as long as 360 caterpillars." Thanks. This could have been a measurement in ancient times, but not incredibly helpful. Though for kicks, I had to see what this translated to. So picking the middle average size of a caterpillar, which is 2 inches by the way, I multiplied it by 360 and got 720 inches, or 60 feet, or 18.3 meters, which is quite large. Anyway, I did find some accounts that all had similar depictions. The already mentioned Chinese dictionary from 100 AD reads, quote, "The Qilin is described as an elk, with the tail of an ox and one horn." End quote. The Book of Imaginary Beings by Jorge Luis Borges and Margarita Guerrero has a really good summary of everything put together. Quote, "It has the body of a deer, the tail of an ox, and the hooves of a horse. Its short horn, which grows out of its forehead, is made of flesh. Its coat on its back is of 5 mixed colors, while its belly is brown or yellow. It is so gentle that when it walks, it is careful not to tread on the tiniest living creature, and will not even eat live grass, but only what is dead. Its appearance foretells the birth of an upright ruler. To wound the Chinese unicorn or to come across its dead body is unlucky. The span of this animal's natural life is 1,000 years." End quote. Depictions also have it wreathed in a sort of heavenly fire, as well as sometimes having wings. Careful not to confuse this with the longma, however, which is also a type of horse dragon. One of the most famous encounters is during the Ming Dynasty, when Admiral Zheng He brought back a giraffe and presented it to the Yongle Emperor. Yongle means perpetual happiness. The emperor declared it as a Qilin due to its supposed likeness to the legendary Qilin with the long legs and neck, scale-like color pattern, and the ossicones on the giraffe's head. It is most likely that this was a political move by the emperor, as he was a usurper to the throne, to show that he had legitimate reign. The connection to the giraffe, however, can still be seen in Japan, as the word Kirin also means giraffe. Speaking of Japan, the Qilin, now Kirin, is very similar in depiction, behavior, and symbology. There seems to be a bit more emphasis, however, on the Kirin's ability to control the weather and elements, breathing fire of righteous judgment upon the wicked. The Kirin in all its different forms is still very important today to the culture of these Asian countries. While there are variations depending on the country, the essence of what a Qilin is kept. The Qilin is important in feng shui and wuxing, signals prosperity and longevity, and is used in names, statues, charms, festivals, and even companies, like the Kirin Brewery Company making the popular Kirin Ichiban brew in Japan. There are other connections that can be made, but I think that this is sufficient for us to bring this creature to life. The Ecology and Biology of the Kirin. The Monster Manual and Forgotten Realms from Dungeons & Dragons do a great job at incorporating history to produce the fantasy version of the Kirin. I will be using them to flesh out the biology and ecology of our Kirin. According to Forgotten Realms, the Kirin is 13 feet or 4 meters in length. There is no weight mentioned. A Kirin can live up to 1,000 years, which coincides with history. The reproduction of the Kirin seems to be sexual reproduction with the Qi and Lin, but there isn't much else to go off of. And actually, according to Forgotten Realms, it states, quote, "These celestials refuse to talk about their reproduction, so remained a mystery to mortals," end quote. The depiction shown is very accurate to the description given by history, and keep in mind there are many different variations. With the name of Kirin instead of Qilin, the inspiration is taken a bit more from the Japanese variation of the creature, which is more consistent on the one-horn variation throughout the record. The Fae-like ears and the Chinese beard style, colored in white, to show age and wisdom, are a nice touch. The Forgotten Realms adds that the other variations of the Kirin can also be found, including the two-horned variation. The Pathfinder picture leans more into the elk idea, with brown coloration instead. The lore that we read made the different appearances and coloration of the Qilin based upon which Forgotten Realms god it was in service to. This is much different than history, but an interesting and fun way to explain this variation. I'm surprised that neither add the celestial flames, which are a really cool and nice touch. Alright, there we go. Now let's see how Kirins interact with their surroundings. Relying heavily now on Forgotten Realms and Pathfinder with inspiration from history, Kirins inhabit mountains or plateaus, preferably one that is ruled by a benevolent ruler. Quote from the Forgotten Realms, Kirins were known to inhabit the highlands of the Moonshae Isles, as well as northern forests and mountains of the Endless Waste. The Cloudlands, a fabled aerial kingdom above the Stonelands, was home to several creatures such as Kirins, mist dragons, and giants." End quote. Found in solitude, Kirin's lair can look like a cross between a temple and a palace, which we will read in the lore now. Lair of Luxury. On the celestial planes, Kirins reside in lofty, elegant areas filled with luxurious objects. On the material plane, a Kirin chooses a similar location for its lair, such as atop a tall pinnacle or within a cloud solidified by the Kirin's magic. The chosen location is almost always hard to reach, and only those mortals who have the tenacity to complete the daunting journey to a Kirin's lair can prove themselves worthy of speaking with its occupant. Many of those who do end up pledging service to the creature. They study under its tutelage in its lair and serve as agents in the world. These followers might travel incognito across the land, seeking news of growing evil and working behind the scenes. Or they might be champions of their master's cause, out to defeat villainy wherever it is found. When viewed from outside, the Kirin's lair is indistinguishable from a natural sight, and the entrance is difficult for visitors to find and reach. Inside, the lair is a serene and comfortable place, its ambiance a mix between palace and temple. The Kirin has taken creatures into its service. Its lair doubles as a sacred site, wherein the Kirin not only rests, but also teaches of holy mysteries. And the rest we have already covered. With the lair actions and regional abilities, we can imagine lush vegetation and pure flowing water, creating this serene place to live for 3 miles. A Kirin can decide to become a guardian for a region that it likes, protecting and blessing the inhabitants therein. A Kirin is an herbivore that can conjure its own food to eat. Not wanting to even harm the grass beneath their feet, Kirins can be seen flying or walking on an unseen path just above the ground. If they wish to be really fancy, they conjure clouds for a more majestic stride. A Kirin can be seen at any time of the day or night, and is a sign of purity, longevity, and the birth of an important ruler, hero, or sage. Willing to converse with any creature, a Kirin can be a great ally, particularly to the Solars. Beware if evil intentions are found in your heart, as the Kirin excels as both a fighter and spellcaster, purifying anything in sight with a breath of celestial flame. I always like to end each video by brainstorming some ideas together. Other places the Kirin can be found are: number 1, the Monster Hunter series, with a focus on control over lightning. Number 2, a legendary mount in Final Fantasy XIV. Number 3, Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore. Number 4, Ganyu in Genshin Impact as half Qilin. Number 5, Pyrin in Palworld, which is a combination of Pyro and Kirin or Qilin. Number 6, seen in Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, as the most well-known occurrences of the Qilin or the Kirin, and many other media. Pulling from history, Kirins can be used to herald in a significant event, creature, or person. One can be sought out for advice or the stabilization and protection of a country or an area. A Kirin can majestically arrive to save a party of players or revive a once disease-ridden land. Players can be sent on a quest by a Kirin or to save a dying one that is protecting a city from collapsing into the Shadow Realm. The Kirin has such a rich history, and the lore from Forgotten Realms as well as the Monster Manual entry in both D&D and Pathfinder do a great job at reflecting that. I hope this culturally significant creature can play a role in whatever work you're incorporating it into. And as always, I hope this video was fun and educational. Be creative and find ways to incorporate the Qilin or the Kirin in your own work. Like and subscribe if you are inclined to do so, and I will see you all in the next one.